Well, you went black on mine again, so you look fine.
Oh, this is great. So we have Troy Hansen, Ryan, and myself on tonight. Troy is fixing his lighting because his face is all blurred out, like he's a gang member doing an interview on Soft White Underbelly YouTube channel or something like that.
Oh, it's definitely not any better.
No, it'll be fine.
Is my camera dirty?
Some
I'm
people
really good at this
say,
stuff.
"Oh, you just shut it off."
Wait, what?
Some people say I have a face for radio. Maybe I need to get your lighting.
Wait, am I still on or no?
No, you're good now.
Okay.
I still don't
nice
see
and
you, but
blurry.
it's not important. I can hear you.
Man, it looks clear on my end.
Yeah, maybe it's just me, which is
Well-
usually the case. It's just me.
Yeah, I got no idea.
Troy, you once told me you were called the Tiger King of catfishing.
Yeah, I miss those days.
Did you cut your hair? I can't tell because you always had a ponytail.
Yeah, kind of got like some mohawk stuff going on now.
Gosh, I'm jealous. I can't bring myself to go the mohawk route.
I wish I could see it.
Man, it's clear on my end. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm on my phone because I've got no Wi-Fi at all at my house right now. Power went out last night, and we haven't had Wi-Fi on and off all day.
Amy just said she didn't think the camera's on.
I can see you. It'll be fine.
Can you see me?
This is how it looks, Trey.
It's not showing me on. Amy's got the Facebook thing pulled up. And it's not on hers.
We're live.
We have quality control in the other room.
Should have started this way sooner.
Oh yeah, you are black on the live.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I don't know.
What do I do? Let's see if I can find my camera button here.
You're the first person this has ever happened to. I swear this never happens, Troy.
Well, I know what this button does.
I can see you.
Yeah, no, that's weird. Wonder why nobody else can.
Maybe I'll kick you out and then.
Yeah, throw me out and I'll come back in.
Troy will be
'cause I
removed
had
from
him
the
for-
studio. If you want to prevent this person from rejoining, you should ban them instead. We'll just kick him out.
Yeah, I saw him for a brief minute, and then he went black again.
Yeah, I was telling everybody he looks like the Tiger King of catfishing, and they're like, we can't even see him. People are all like standing on the edge of their chair, like, oh my gosh, I want to see the Tiger King of catfishing. And I'm just routinely letting people down. Yep, that's what I do.
So what sucks on your phone is you can't see the comments. That's my favorite part of doing this is read those comments as we're talking.
No, I got it. Larry Whitson had a good one. He said, let's start the podcast off right with what's your favorite Leonard Skinner song? Mine's easy. It's just Freebird because it's the only Leonard Skinner song I can think of off the top of my head.
The only one you can sing from heart. There's Troy.
In my back.
I see you.
I can see you.
All right, let me check with Amy. See if she can see me. Can you see me? I'm on.
Yes.
Technology. Man, I'm such a whiz at this.
Yeah.
I'm way better at channel catfishing than I am this stuff.
Persistence pays off. So the whole, well, I mean, fishing is very loosely discussed on this podcast to begin with, but the number one rule on this one, and we only have one other rule that we're not going to talk about on here.
It's mainly a rule for me.
Is you can't say the word flathead or blue cat. You can only say channel cat today.
Oh,
Channel cat's the only catfish species there is. What about bullhead? I mean, they kind of count, right?
Hey, you said it. Take a drink. Yep. You can always say bullhead.
You betcha.
If I was going to catch any state record catfish, it would definitely have to be a bullhead. Cheers again.
This is gonna be a long, maybe short episode.
And it would be one fish that I definitely want to get mounted, which takes me back to Catfish Conference. There's a guy, God, I can't remember his name because I suck at names, but he is a pretty much nationally, if not worldly renowned taxidermist, which I don't know if he does any skin mounts. He just does replicas, but his paint jobs are amazing. And he's got a form for a 15 or 16 inch skipjack. And I want to get a mounted skipjack.
Yes.
Or a shad. Like a shad would probably be better. Like get like a big 14-inch shad on a piece of driftwood. How sweet would that be?
That'd be awesome. But
yeah,
I mean, all of them too. Like a skipjack would be that'd be pretty cool also.
So if
put
I
like
could
a skippy jig in its mouth or something.
Well, so I want the shad to be the centerpiece. I don't want there to be like a big catfish trying to eat it.
No, that's what I meant though. Like a skipjack, like a jig, or crappies. Sometimes they have like a crappie twiddle tail or something.
Yeah, that is a great idea. Oh, Larry recommended, Ryan, if you flip your phone sideways, you'll be landscaped like the rest of us.
Oh,
boom.
Hey. My hand's going to get tired by the end of this.
It'll be all right. You'll get her figured out. Just like Troy got it figured out.
Yeah, if I can figure it out, man, like you can.
We're a work in progress.
Troy, what do you love so much about channel cats?
Oh man. I don't know. I think just because I grew up catching them, probably. And for where I'm at, it's probably the most like accessible. And then just the variety and size. Like I have fun catching, 2-3 pounders, go out. I mean, obviously I want to catch big ones all the time, but I just like to catch fish. And here in Iowa, man, you can go about any place, any body of water here, and you can catch channel cats.
1,000,000%.
It's harder to catch the other species because I can't say their names.
Yes.
But then just like the variety and size, 2-3 pounders, they're fun. You tackle down, you use light tackle. Then when you travel and go for the bigger ones, your teen size 20+ pounders, then you can tackle up, size up your rigs and all that stuff. But
or not.
Just the variety. Yeah, or not. Yes. Or not. That's
you
great.
Had a pretty good winter on channels, didn't you, Troy?
What's that?
You had a pretty good winter on channels.
Yeah.
Some big ones. Yeah.
Finally got some ice this year and got to do some ice catting. It's been, man, we used to do it pretty hard, but the last couple of years it's, 1 or 2. And, this year we kind of wanted to try a little harder to get them through the ice, and may have pulled the trigger on the live scope. I went with Mega Live, and I'll tell you, some people want to call it cheating. I'll call it cheating. I'm not too proud, but I like catching fish. But just using that live scope, just seeing the way they come up to a bait and move and react. I have a hard time just using a traditional flasher. I actually have 2 other flashers that I used to use. And I'd like the first couple times I'd take them with me this year, and it was just waste. Like I never, if I go hole hopping, I'll, use the flasher. No. Once I use the live, like I'm not going back. Like,
Ryan, don't you have one of my flashers?
Yeah, I've got one of yours and 2 of mine, but none of them got used this year.
I literally forgot that you even had it until Troy started talking about using the flasher. I'm like, oh yeah, I have one, but Ryan has it.
Yeah, it's sitting on my shelf.
Yep. But no, yeah. We did a little bit of the ice fishing for him this year, and we did a couple, I'd say back in the day when we really started, we would just use like the jaw jackers, and we would just put, if we go in Wisconsin for the big ones, the 20+ pound channels. We just put out a bunch of jaw jackers, and everybody would stand around and, have drinks. We cook food with the Wisconsin boys with, Ken Miller, Jerry Hohausen, Al, and the group of those guys that we'd go with. I mean, man, those guys true Wisconsin style. Fish fry. They'd bring out so much stuff. Jerry'd make Black Forest brownies for dessert. And you just stand around. We'd have 28 jaw jackers out, just a huge spread. Yeah, we'd have
that's awesome.
10 guys, and you just stand, and then, you kind of know where your jaw jackers are at, and we'd play some, for the guys kind of want some information, piece of cut bait, anywhere from right on the bottom to a couple feet off the bottom. And you just stand around. When a jaw jacker would go off, we'd have window alarms on ours. So when the rod would fling up, there'd be a kind of a stationary board, and then there'd be the trigger board, and it would fall back, and then the window alarm would go off, and it'd be like, wee, 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 wee. And you could hear that thing from a long ways away, and man, everybody's like just stops and just takes off running. And those are some of the best, probably the best ice fishing times I've ever had was doing that. And we haven't really got to do that a whole lot.
Dude, you're partying on the ice and catching fish.
Yeah. You're eating, having some adult beverages. Man, we'd play ice hole, where you drill a hole not all the way through, and then it's kind of like shuffleboard / pool. You'd have one hole, you'd scoop a runway, you have a hole at each end, and you'd sit there and toss a plastic bottle of, you can use water or whatever. A lot of time we use brandy. And if you guy made it in the hole, he'd take a pull off of it. And but man, we had some good times doing that. But this year, with the live and stuff, and be able to chase them down, kind of, because I know you guys, I think, went a couple times, and you did more active jigging.
Mm-hmm.
And we never really got into that. Now with the lives, the live scopes, the mega live, all that, especially if you get a couple guys, just doing the active jigging. You just
so much more
a spoon or something on with a piece of cut bait, and honestly, Whisker Seeker Tackle, I got to give them a shout out for about everything we use, but they do make a really good ice jig. And for cats, and we put a piece of cut bait on there, drop it down. And the main thing we found out, and you probably did too, you jig, and then you get them to come in, and then as soon as they got close, it's almost like you got to hold that thing dead still.
You freeze. Yeah.
In fact,
the cool thing with that live is you can see, you can see the tail move, you can see them swim by it, and then you see them just turn real fast. And then they almost rub up against it. So you think you're getting right. So if you didn't have the scope, you would think, oh man, I got a bite. You'd set the hook and you'd miss him. I missed him. It's well, in reality, he never even touched it. He was tasting it with all the taste buds on the side of him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I get so jacked up. Just watching them is just awesome.
Oh, agreed, man.
And when they come in suspended, 5 foot off the bottom, they just look like a school bus.
Yeah.
Going through the freaking water column.
Yep. Yep. And you can see the tail. You can see them move. It's so cool just to watch them move too. Just real slow. And
so what's the biggest one you've seen and caught doing that?
Through the ice?
Yeah.
It was probably back, 2017-ish, I'm thinking. I can't remember for sure. It was one Amy caught. It was 20 plus. We didn't have a scale at the time. We had an 8-inch hole, and the fins were scraping coming up. We didn't break them, but I didn't know if it was going to come up that 8-inch hole. I know we had about 18 inches of ice, and I was shoulder deep, and there was a treble hook in the corner of its mouth, and she'd pull up, and you just see the face get stuck. I'm back to the adult beverages. I'm I'm either going shoulder deep and I'm going to get the fish, or she's going to catch me with the hook in my finger, or both. I know how to remove a hook. So
she was okay either way. Just get in there.
So I got my hand in its mouth and pulled it up, and it was a good one. I think we got pictures on the wall, but I don't think I got one handy of her big one, but yeah, it was probably, I mean, it was 20 plus. It wasn't any more than
what a 20-pound channel cat looks like. So if you say it's 20 plus,
yeah,
everybody listening should understand it was definitely 20 plus.
Yeah.
Coming through an 8-inch hole in the ice is awesome, man.
Yeah. But yep. And then, caught, and again, back to the whole why I like channel catching, and even catching when we scale down and you're using a bluegill rod or a crappie rod, and you got 2-pound test line and you catch, I mean, even a 2-pounder, but 2 to 5 pounds. I mean, that's just quite a fight on those little ice rods,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, what I was getting at, I'm glad you shared that story too, because that would have been another question. But for the Mega Live, what's the biggest catfish you've caught that you've seen swimming around on the Mega Live?
I just started using it. So Jimmy Brown with Chasing Cats Guide Service, he's out of like the Montezuma area. We've been fishing with him quite a bit, and he
catches giants.
Yeah, he fishes his lake, and they got big flatheads in it. And we've gone there with him a time or two. And once again, Amy has probably caught the biggest one that I've seen on that. It was a big flathead. We were flathead fishing.
Wait, you can't say that word. God damn it. You broke the rule already.
No, hey, that's not my fault. You asked me the biggest fish.
I should have said biggest channel cat.
You didn't say biggest channel cat. Okay, biggest channel cat. But anyway, watching that fish come in and hit hers was pretty cool. But biggest channel cat was in the Red River, and it was Amy, I, and Jimmy. We went up there this past fall up in Manitoba, and man, I'll tell you, if anybody, that's a trip of a lifetime. I don't care if you think channel cats are little and all that.
Not up there.
They're not up there. You don't catch one under 10. I don't know, we caught 600 and something catfish, channel cats in a week. And I don't think one of them was there might've been one under 10 pounds, but everything else was 10, 12 plus. But out of them 600, we ran about a 18-pound average. And, and the biggest one was 28 pounds.
Jesus.
Our friends Al and Sheila from Wisconsin, they came up there with us too, and Sheila caught it. But that one wasn't on live. But up there, the biggest one was probably mid-20s. But it was pretty cool watching them come in on the live on that Mega, or not actually he had the Garmin. I didn't have the Mega Live yet. He brought his Garmin Live Scope, and just watching them come up, we'd anchor and we'd drop straight down, and you'd see them come up like behind a boulder, and then your bait, you just lift it up and you'd see him come up to your bait, and he's got some videos on his Facebook, and I think we posted some videos too, but man, then it's like, it's like back bouncing. It's the exact same thing, only you're not moving, you're just stationary, and you feel that thump, and the rod tip just goes thunk and goes down, and bam, you just hit them straight up. And so so the biggest channel cat, probably I'd say 24 pounds, I think, was the biggest one on live.
So you got to watch that big sumbitch slither around on the bottom, looking like a giant slug slinking around.
Yep. But honestly, like, they weren't really on the bottom. They would hide behind the boulders, and then they'd come up, maybe 2-3 feet. But we'd also see, and it was cool in the river. So you'd have, I would say, the catfish were down lower. Then you had the walleyes, and then you had moon eye or whatever they got up there, the gold eye.
Mm-hmm.
Gold eye would be up higher, but you would still see channel cats up high too, chasing them, but a lot more like the walleye. So it usually go catfish, walleye, bait fish. I'm 100% sure I saw a catfish come up from behind a boulder and smoke a gold eye, though. You're sitting there, I got my bait down, and there's a boulder right behind the boat, and there's a catfish behind it, and you see, here comes the gold eye just about level with that boulder, and I see it go by, and then I see the catfish come up, and then one of the marks disappears. So pretty sure that one got ate.
He's not going to walk that one off.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, I would imagine the majority of the fish that channel cats or just catfish in general eat are alive.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. The bigger ones, the bigger catfish, yes, 100% sure.
But how often is there fresh dead things floating around in the river?
Right. Yep. Below your dams and stuff, you'll probably have a little more just because of the turbines and stuff like that. And that's a lot of times why the fish, beginning the season, with ice out, when the dead fish come through, or in the fall when they go to feed up, they want to use as less energy as possible. So they just go sit behind the dam, and whatever gets, chewed up, spit out, they just sit there and, pick it off as it floats down. But the rest of the river, other than, barges are a big thing that I think a lot of people don't understand, like how much bait they churn up. So when a barge goes through, you get the barge bite. Well, maybe the barge bites because it activates the fish to feed because they know that bait's getting chopped up. They get, the
barge bite's not real, Troy.
Yes, it is.
No.
Yes, it is. It's not 100. 69% of the time, it works every time.
I am 0 for 17 down here on the barge bite. Seriously, like every time one goes by, I'm like, oh, there goes the fake ass barge bite. Sitting here not catching anything.
Must be a southern. Maybe it's a southern thing that it doesn't work. I don't know.
Maybe. I'm thinking the only time I've ever caught a catfish when a barge went by was on the Mississippi one time.
I can see that.
But maybe the barges down there have an oil slick because they're leaking.
Maybe.
Get some fish out of there.
I have all I know is I don't see the barge bite. And I want to go out with somebody and set it up to see if it's real, because I'm just not sure it's real.
Yeah. And I think so the Missouri, I think maybe it's a little more, and, joking on the bait getting chopped up, but a lot of it I think too is, say if you're sitting on the outside ledge, which the barges have to go up the channel. I 100% think they push those fish out of the channel, especially like up here when your channels aren't near as deep. If you're down there and your channel's 80 foot deep, them fish can just sit on the bottom. They're not going to get chased out. But up here when our channel's 20 foot deep and that barge sits 10 foot down with all that wash, that pushes them fish out of the channel up either onto the flats or pushes them over to them ledges, which I guess that's a lot of times that's what I fish on the Mississippi. Is a lot of ledges, and maybe that's something to do, with a barge bite. But I definitely think with the deeper water, the water displacement and all that, not to get all scientific on an old science teacher, but
physics, water displacement,
it's physics.
Now down here, it's the bass boat bite. If a bass boat goes by, you get a bite, but that's not real either, because it's a never ending line of bass boats going.
You have a train of bass boats.
Yeah.
Hey, as long as they go fast, they don't throw much of a wake. So,
not compared to a barge. No.
Yeah. No. Or a pleasure boat or a wakeboard boat. I'll take a bass boat any day. I'll take 100 bass boats to 2 wakeboard boats.
Yeah. Or jet skis aren't that bad either. If
there's annoying. That's like the gnat. They're just like a gnat buzzing around. You just want to swat them.
Yeah. I haven't yet. Not saying it won't happen. I haven't yet.
Not yet.
On the Coralville Reservoir, man, I've been close to so many encounters with boaters and jet skiers and just oblivious to fishing.
Sorry, I was just out having a good time, man.
Yeah.
Troy, would you rather catch one 20-pound channel or 22-pound channels?
What was the number again?
One 20-pound channel or 22-pound channels?
Oh man, that's tough. I mean, I guess it depends.
Depends on what the
if I'm in a body of water where maybe there's only a few big fish, big channel cats, yeah, I'll take the 120 pounder. But if I'm like on a body of water where there's a lot of possibility of bigger channel cats, I guess, I don't know. That's tough.
See, the fact that you don't have a straightforward answer to that is why you're a channel cat guy in my mind. You like catching fish.
I love catching fish because most of the time if I'm channel catting, I have light tackle. I might have heavy line, but again, back to the whisker seeker stuff, the cat and carp rods, those have really hands down probably become Amy and I's favorite to use.
Sure.
Versatility.
Yeah.
So catching, 22-pound channel cats, that's fun,
Hell yeah, it is. They put a good bend in those. The spinning rods, especially, are freaking good time catching fish that size. And yeah, when you get quantity, and then the fight is still really good because you have light tackle. How could you? I've never seen anybody reel in 20 catfish with a frown on their face.
Yeah.
This trip sucks.
100%. But I'll throw that back. I'll piggyback off of that. I do see a lot of guys way over tackle for channel cats.
That's the problem with this country right there is people over tackling for channel cats and then talking shit on channel cats.
And I'll throw it in, hey, sorry to talk about you Southern guys, but I'm talking about you. You come up here with your
wait, are you talking about me? Because I'm just a transplanted Yankee.
No. I'm talking, and a lot of this is I'll tone it down to the tournament guys. The tournament guys. Don't
tune it down, Troy. Just let it out.
No, amp it up.
But they come up here with heavy action rods and 80-pound braid. Now I'm not lying. I use 60-pound braid on my cat and carp spinning rods.
Yeah.
But the rod itself plays, a lot better to the smaller fish. But
dude, I use 50.
They come up with broomsticks and they get mad because, that ain't no fun. That ain't no fun. Well, yeah,
you're stinging them across
fishing for a lot smaller fish. Even if they're a big channel cat, they're still small compared to what they are. But you tackle down, you size down.
They're essentially a bass-sized catfish. Oh, they're bigger than bass. They fight harder than bass. They're more fun than bass, but they're in that ballpark of size range. So if you have bass-sized tackle to fish for them, I'll die on this hill. They fight harder pound for pound than any other catfish.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's not 100%. Even close.
In a lake, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're in a lake, a river, current. They just fight hard, and the little ones fight hard, and which is kind of frustrating sometimes. The little ones fight so hard, especially when you're in a tournament, and there is a little bit of disappointment when one comes up and you're like, yeah, that's only 5 pounds. Like, I thought that was 10 pounds plus.
Yeah.
But they do. And back to your original question, I think one of your first ones was that's why I like fishing for them. Is that's one of many reasons is they fight and they're fun to catch,
Yeah. The accessibility that you brought up too is like a really big thing. There's every single person listening to this podcast, I would bet at a very minimum within an hour drive, but probably more like a 10-minute drive, there is a channel cat close to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like every little creek, pond, lake across the entire country has channel cats in it. They might not be the biggest, they might not be the most, but they are present. And then lots of those types of places have little hidden gems. Like the biggest channel cats I've ever heard of in my life have came out of little dinky creeks that feed into big bodies of water, or little city park ponds that are like 4 acres that just happen to grow 25 to 30 pounders.
Yep.
They exist.
They have 2.
Yeah, but they exist, man. Like, well, there's a couple that don't have 2. They have a bunch of them, and like I've been tempted to go fish them, but I'm not going to go fish them and film them to share with everybody because they are what I just said, little hidden gems. And if you take the time to go out and explore, you never know what you'll find. And a 30-pound blue versus, God damn it, a 30-pound B word versus a 30-pound channel. That channel, like if you tied them tail to tail, that channel cat is dragging that B word all the way around the river.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. I like all right, B word. I kind of like that. Or F word.
So yeah, you're asking me about biggest one through the ice. So the biggest channel that I have personally caught was 30 pounds, 6 ounces, I think.
Through the ice?
No, not through the ice. That just my biggest one, my personal best.
That's freaking giant open water too, but
yeah, and that was up in Manitoba on the Red River.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time I went.
You got spoiled immediately.
Yeah. It was the last day of a week-long trip, and the whole point to go up there was to catch a 30-pounder, and it was down to the last hour.
Pressure was on.
Yes, it was on. And the coolest thing was it was Amy and I in the boat, and it was our old boat, and I literally called my shot. I took a little bit of piece of bait that was left in the cooler. It was a wad of guts, and put them on the hook. And literally just jokingly, I did the Babe Ruth. I pointed. I'm like, I'm going to throw right here on this current seam. I'm going to catch my 30-pound channel cat. Cast it out, and I don't know, maybe 2 minutes later, the rod folded. But all week long, it didn't matter if they were 18 pounds or 24 pounds. They fought like a 30-pounder, and we got let down so many times thinking that it was a 30. And finally, it got up next to the boat, and I don't even think Amy was really ready with the net. And we're like, it's just another 24-pounder.
Yeah.
Right.
And that fish came up, and I looked at it. I probably went ghost white, and I'm like, I literally probably started stuttering. I'm like, dude, that's a 30-pounder. That's a 30-pounder. and at the same time, we're both like, don't freak out. Don't freak out. As inside, I'm literally freaking out big time. And it came up multiple times. And finally it came up and she got it in the net. And just looking at it, I'm like, yeah, that's 30-pounder. Got in the boat and weighed it. Always said I was going to get a replica made if I caught a 30-pound channel cat. And then I found out how much, replica of a 30-pound channel cat was. I'm like, well, if I caught a 30-pounder, I can catch a 31-pounder.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty cool. It literally looked like as I held it, it literally looked like a baby seal. Like you see.
Was it really dark?
That one wasn't. No, it was kind of just like a pale gray, but it had cool stretch marks. You catch a ton of big channel cats, and there was one you were holding that looked monstrous that was really, really dark. And that was the picture in my mind. Yep. A lot of times, so that water is really dirty, and it seems the clearer the water is, the darker they are.
Oh yeah.
Like up in Wisconsin, that special lake that we go to, it'll have some pretty clear water. And when you get to end of May, the fish with the spawn colors, they'll be black. You'll catch black ones. The females are usually like the dark green with a white belly.
Right.
But then you'll catch the elusive northern blue cat. I will say the B word because it's not a blue cat; it's a channel cat.
You're right. Okay, I'll let it slide.
But yeah, just the color variation is pretty awesome too on them. But yeah, it seems like the clearer the water is, a lot of times you'll get the darker fish, and that goes with all the other fish. Bass, panfish. You get that murky, muddy water; they just seem kind of pale.
Yeah. Yeah, the same applies for the B words and F words too. I'm gonna go grab me another beer. You guys talk about ice out strategies because we're getting close to ice out for lakes and rivers.
Best time
I'm saying we're days away after this storm moves out.
Yep. So here where I'm at, Coralville Reservoir, is, I mean, it's a channel cat factory. You're not going to get, your big size. A big one on Corville is 10, 12 pounds, which is still a nice size cat. Most people,
absolutely.
Most normal, I mean, I'll say normal people that, don't fish as near as much as, I might, or a 5-pound channel cat is big to them. And, which is awesome. I still get excited on a 5-pounder, but on Corville, you'll get the 10, 12 pounder is a big one. But what I like, and too, probably, those things start gorging on them ice out shad. Like the shad show, a 5-pounder will be, 9 pounds.
Yes. Just round.
Yeah. And I mean, there's times you'll catch them, their bellies will be so full, and you'll open their mouth to take the hook out, and there'll be a big shad tail sticking out. So, dude, you haven't even finished your other meal. But yeah,
I mean, I've been there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like an hour ago.
Yeah. But I'd say strategy wise, for me, 100% shallower the better. Once that ice goes out, you get, especially if you can get a week of warm, I'm going to say 40 plus during the day for a long, 40, 50, especially getting into the 50s. That's when it really turns on. But the sunnier the day early, the ice goes out, you get a week of sunny days, man, them shallow mud flats, I'm talking a foot. Like I literally drive the boat until it gets stuck, and then I'll start fishing.
Then we fish.
That presents a wonderful opportunity for anybody bank fishing.
Yes. Yeah.
Like if you have a place where it's a nice day and the wind's blowing into the shore, and you just walk down to that part of the bank and cast whatever out on the bottom. And lots of times, if you time it right, the majority of the channel cats in the entire lake are right at your feet.
Yep. Yeah.
You don't have to cast very far.
Yep. And you don't. When you're bank fishing in the spring, you don't want to cast very far. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of people do that. They'll way overcast them. Especially the wind blown. Like if you get on a wind blown bank, I mean, you only need to flip that thing 10, 15 yards maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, if it's just a big open flat, you can, then you want to stagger them.
Yeah.
Fan them out, get your different depth, I won't say depths, but distances.
One of my favorite tactics for that is in Iowa, you can fish 2 rods. You can get a third pull permit and fish 3. But so I'll get the third pull permit. I'll cast 2 on the bottom out, and then I'll take 1 with a float on it. And I'll this. It works best if you're in a boat or a kayak. So you're throwing at the wind blowing shore, and then you throw that float out and let it drift, and then stop it for like 3-4 minutes, and then let it drift another 10-15 feet and stop it for 3 or 4 minutes. And you're covering water, but you're doing it slow enough where even though those fish don't want to chase a bait in that cooler water, which they will a little bit, but it's just a great way to cover water. And lots of times that's the rod where I catch the most fish.
Yep. So tactic wise on that, I kind of have I'd say a system. It's like I won't say really.
I like systems, Troy. Tell us about your system.
Yeah, so like water temperature. I'm not a big water temp guy. At ice out mainly. Once the ice goes out, cool. The ice is gone. The water, especially in that shallow stuff, it warms up real fast, but it cools real fast.
Yeah.
So if you can get a bunch of days in a row where you got sun and steady temp, it's going to be absolute lights out.
Yeah.
But more like right away. So right when the ice goes out, we'll say the first 2 weeks, I use very small hooks. I mean, very small,
how small are you talking?
1-aught, maybe even smaller than 1-aught,
Yeah.
Like a walleye open gap hook. But Whisker Seekers come out with a bunch of hooks. They got some good ones. That's what I use.
Do they have 1-aughts?
I don't think so. But the Circle K's, they got a 4-aught J hook, which is
They got the 6/0 Circle Ks that are, I would call them a 4/0, not a 6.
Yep. And those, so right away, the first 2 weeks, maybe even 3, depending on the weather, I'm a J hook guy.
Yes.
It's about the only time I ever use J hooks because the cats are still only time you need a J hook. But the cats, they're coming out.
You don't fish for the F word.
I still don't use J hooks. But I'm also not near as good at hooking flatheads as you. There's
well, you haven't missed as many as me. You got to screw it up a bunch.
Yeah, but I will say the triple threats, they're kind of to me a game changer on the flatheads. I've had good luck with them. But F word, back to the channel cats.
Yes.
I like a real small J hook.
Yeah.
Because the channel cats, they're cold. Like you'll notice when you catch them, they don't open their mouths very much. So they're just like that in the water. They're going around. They're just kind of sucking stuff up.
Slurping.
So
well, they do the same shit under the ice.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, you don't need a very big piece of bait.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too. Small piece of bait. I mean, a piece of bait maybe the size of like your pinky. The end of your pinky is all you need. Shad guts here in my area is king. But frozen shad works just as good because that's what they're eating. Yeah. But just cut them in small pieces. But yeah, I'll use the J hook, just a Carolina rig. I'll use a small sinker. It might be a half-ounce barrel sinker. Sometimes I'll go to ounce and a half. That's if I want to really cast them out. But to your bobber thing, when that first ice goes out, I don't have as good luck on the bobbers just because they're not active enough.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get then back to my system, once you get about 3 weeks of the weather warming up, then you can definitely pick up the activity. The bites get a lot harder. You don't just get the taps, you'll get the actual pull downs. And once you start getting those pull downs quite often, then I'll switch to some bobbers.
Sure.
And I might only be in a foot of water, but I'm still going to put a bobber on because there's something about it. It gives. I don't know if they feel the movement of the bobber going up and down because their whole body. Their whole body's a receptor.
Right.
So they feel that. But for some reason, like you said, Spencer, them bobbers, they tend to do real well. But I don't ever throw just the same of anything. Like I always have with me, I always get the 3 rods. Then, Amy's with me or I have somebody else. We have multiple people. We always have at least a couple different, rigs out there. And that's very important all year long, no matter how you're fishing for, your channel cats. I guess that's how I go.
That's the fact that you've made that distinction between like observing it, whether there's ice there or not, and basing your rigging system around that is why you are like the king of reservoir channel cats in my mind. Like me,
absolutely.
There's, the water's open. I want to throw a bobber. So I throw a damn bobber and don't put any more thought into it. And if I catch him, I catch him on it. And if I don't, I don't. But yeah, you're putting thought into it.
I'm not a huge overthinker, but sometimes I think I probably do overthink enough. But a lot of people, and I hear this all the time. It's just a channel cat. Just throw a piece of bait out there. You'll catch it.
That's observation.
No, you won't. You might catch them sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't go out there to catch them sometimes. And I don't know. Sometimes I like to help people catch them. I get excitement. Tournament wise, that's a little different. I still probably open my mouth too much and tell too many people. Here's where I'll put in Tyson Emery and Jesse and those guys. They've been just tearing it up on the Mississippi River. And apparently it's something I told them to do a few years ago, and they've been doing a really good job. Now they put their own little spin on it, and those guys are great fishermen. But again, they're friends. I talk, and sometimes it bites me in the butt in tournaments, but I don't care. I like people to catch fish.
You're not making a living on tournaments, so who gives a crap? And
I still don't like to lose, though. And sometimes when I lose, now in my defense, I have I'm very good at getting people to get loose lips around the campfire and spill their guts a little bit, and that has
because you feed them bourbon.
I feed them bourbon,
There's a lot of useful tactics.
Some homemade stuff. but yeah, so like back to I like people to catch fish, and man, when there's people that come and ask me, what are you doing? How are you catching them? And I'll literally tell them what I'm doing. This is what you have to do to catch them at this time. This is what I'm doing.
Right.
And I'll tell them all that. And then, I'll see a post where like, oh, I went on and didn't do very good. And I've literally had people like not throw my name out there, but kind of innuendo that I gave them bad advice. And then I'll be like, I'll message them back. I'm like, hey man, I'm like, what happened? Like, did you not do what I told you? And they're like, no, I did this, this, and this. But dude, that's not on me. I literally told you where to go, what to use. Half the time, give them bait, and then they don't even use any of that stuff. And sometimes that rubs the guy. Well, maybe I'm not going to help you as much, but I always do.
Sure.
But yeah, if you're going to ask me, like, and I'm not like I will ask people. I have no shame in my game. I'm like, dude, I'm struggling. Like, what'd you do? Tournament fishing, I'm not going to ask somebody that because they're going to feed me a line of crab. I'll probably do the complete opposite. But fun fishing wise, most people are straight shooters. But it even goes to show that fishing is so like it's the little things. It's not the big things in fishing that catches you the fish. It's the very little things. Like if I tell you like a float rig, I'm like, you need to have a 24-inch leader. You need your bobber 3 inches, your float rig 3 inches from your hook, and have a 6-inch dropper on your sinker. That's how I'm catching them. And if you don't do that, you don't catch them. That's not on me.
Well, let's talk about some of the details, man, because everybody asks about rigging, like what's the best rig, blah, 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 blah. What's the best line, hook, everything. Is there a rigging wrinkle, like a rigging tip, like some little sneaky tip for channel cats that you do that could help somebody else catch them?
I'd say the main thing is just don't tie all your rigs the same.
So variety packs.
Variety. And then when one starts working, maybe switch. If you got 3 rods, switch 2 of your rods to that. But their tendencies change through the day.
So what you have 3 rods. What are your 3 rods starting out at?
What time of year? Because that matters too.
Right. Let's
everything. So if I'm now
right
the only time I will tie everything the same, I'll start off at ice out. So everything is a Carolina rig. I'm running. Really, I'm fishing in a foot of water. So early on, having a Carolina, the traditional float or a Sandy Cooper rig, I guess you would call that. But everything's Carolina rig. I have a hook, maybe we'll just say 8 inches to 12 inches of leader, a swivel, and then my sinker. Off the bat, first 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks, that's all I'm throwing. Now, if I don't do that, I'll throw a bobber rig in there where it's the same thing. I just run the Carolina rig, only I put a bobber on.
Right.
And, I might set it to where hopefully it can float and I want it to drag the bait right across the bottom and have it move. Now, if it's early on, I'll literally set it. If I'm fishing in a foot of water, I'll set it for 1.5 feet. So your waves will still kind of move it, but it's also stationary.
Right.
But the main thing there, again, variety. And when one starts working better than the other, then I'll switch some stuff. Sure. Then when you move into the fish move a little deeper, so you're early spring where you're not quite trolling for them yet, but you're anchoring and say maybe 5 foot of water, then I'll definitely do the Sandy Cooper rig. I'll do a Carolina rig, do the Sandy Cooper rig, and then I'll do the bobber rig. And I'll have all 3 of those. But so many times I see people go out and they just throw the same thing. Sure. They'll have 6, 2 people in the boat, 6 rods or more, and every single one is just fishing flat on the bottom. And that's a big thing.
It's either going to work or it's not.
Yep. So then I'll move through the seasons. So now you get into the trolling. For me, trolling for channel cats, there's guys that will start trolling at 50 degrees, surface temp, 50 degrees. I don't like to troll for them. I'm usually better because they're still kind of schooled up. So I'll, side scan, mark a pot of fish, and I've got fairly good enough to mark them. And I know that those are channel cats. Those aren't carp, or some other fish.
They do look different.
Yeah. And once you realize and you fish enough, like okay, that's a pod of carp. Now, a lot of times them pods of channel cat will be behind those pods of carp.
So but why don't you answer this question? How do they look different on side imaging?
Carp they're skinnier. It's just like a skinny line, but they're brighter for me. I run the amber. Amber is my favorite color.
You're using a bird?
Yep, hummingbird.
Yeah.
I got a Helix 10 is what I run. But yeah, so the carp will be just pretty much a thin line, and they're brighter because the scales throw off harder substance. It gives a brighter return. Now, like your bigger channel cats, their head will be kind of white, but then the color tapers. But you can also see the taper. I don't know if I can explain it on here, but they're kind of teardrop shaped.
More
a carp is just a straight line. Yeah, but they're it's like an oblong teardrop. And then if you get a bunch of them
write that down, everyone.
Oblong teardrop. And I've also noticed that carp, they're always seeming to be more or less in line with each other. So the herd is going, they're in line. The channel cats, you'll have one this way, one this way.
They're all over the place.
Yeah, because when they feed, they find something and they circle on it, and they're scanning. Carp, they're grazers. Carp are like buffalo going through the prairie. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So I'll add to what you just said, and if you look at the shadows, typically catfish have slightly thinner shadows, where the carp, it almost looks like a bowling ball-ish shadow behind them. Not always, because it depends on the orientation of the fish in relation to the transducer. But if you see a bunch of fish with a bunch of big round shadows behind them, usually that's your carp or buffalo. I see a lot of buffalo in those places too. And then the catfish have thinner shadows.
Yep.
So anyway, back to the rigging.
So for me, I like about 65 degree, and that's surface temp. And here on my local lake, I'll say a deep spot is 25 foot deep is a deep spot. So the majority of it, I'm fishing 5 to 12 foot of water. So at 65 degrees surface temp, that's when I like to start dragging for them. And they can be anywhere from, there's times where even in the midsummer, 3 foot of water will drag for them. I'm just now getting more accustomed to that.
Yeah.
Kind of weird, but
yeah.
Agreed.
But same thing with the trolling, and I do a lot of trolling. I call it the free drifters versus the trollers. So it's like Open Range, the movie, where you got the cattle and they'll throw a drift sock out and just free drift. And
I just got that. Little slow.
So they're really it's like free grazer, only free drifting, and they'll be on a flat or something and just throw a sock out and that can work. But they're going with the wind. I prefer to almost always troll into the wind or at least into the current.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big thing for me, just scent wise. But there's days where, again, it's variety. If you troll into the wind, 2-3 drifts or trolls, and you're not getting anything, man, just throw the drift sock out and just go back the other direction. And it's crazy the amount of times that's what it takes. And then they hit that way. But back to rigs, I like variety in my length of leader, how high. Of course, it's the Sandy Cooper rig with the hook, the float, and be it a peg float or the Whisker Seeker Ultra Chub, or they got the spooks now, or all the other brands of hard floats, whatever. There's so many of them out there now.
How did you say Ultra Chub without laughing?
I'm used to it, man. Because I got that out of the way. I got that out of the way early on. All right.
I still haven't got over that.
We jump around a lot. We jump around, but I can't not let this one go. So Matt Davis, he was the founder of Whisker Seeker, very good friend. man, when he came out with them hard floats, and we kind of worked with him a little bit, and I'm like, early on, like before there was any of that stuff, I was literally taking bass plugs, floating bass, like jerk baits, stuff like that, and I was taking the hooks off of them, and I was tying, my rig on the back of it. So anyway, then, kind of worked with him, and then him and his design team, they came up with these, and Ken Miller and I believe it was one of the first rafting tournaments, and it was either when Rob Welch was running it, or it might have been a CICA. I don't remember what the name it was, but it was one of the first rafting tournaments, and Matt gave us a couple of them to try out. And dude, I kid you not, they were peach in color, and it with the bumps on. I mean, it literally looked like a mini adult toy. And Ken and I opened that up, and I looked at Ken, and I'm like, dude, I don't know if I can put this on. Like, I literally don't know if I can rig this on.
Did you say peach and you meant flesh colored?
Yes, it was definitely flesh color. I'm like, he's got to be kidding, right? And I think actually Matt and his brother were fishing that tournament, and I think I called him up. I'm like, dude, how are you going to give this to me? Expect me to put it on? I'll tell you what, we put that on, and it was a mid-spring. It was before spawn, and there's something about that hard body float that we were dragging along the rock walls. I shouldn't say rock banks. Yeah, and that they were out producing all the other ones.
Dude, they get them, man. There ain't no denying that.
Yeah,
and yeah, so rig wise, we'll go back into that. When there's rock, though, I think that sound of them rattles. I don't know if and this is me being all sciencey again, but the rattle, I don't know if it pings off them rocks and it gives it even more sound. If you're in mud, it absorbs. That mud absorbs sound. But if you're like fishing rock or like real hard bottom, it just seems like that's where they really, really produce.
That's interesting. So my theory on those is my theory on fishing with a rattle versus not a rattle is if you don't have a rattle, the only attractor scent. So the only way a fish is pulled to it is if they are down current or behind your dragging rigs and they come across the scent and they come and get it. Whereas the sound can pull them from any which direction to come and investigate, and then they see your bait and eat it. And I'm a big rattle fan, and I always have at least one rod with a rattle, except in what you're talking about, right at ice out. I don't think it's helpful. I think it might even hurt you in some instances when they're not very active. But
yeah, 100%. And back to that too. So like some of my bobber rigs will put rattles, so it'll be the hook, leader, swivel, rattle, sink. Sometimes you can interchange the sinker and the rattle, whatever. I don't know if that really matters a whole lot. Probably. But underneath that bobber, when that bobber floats, it's like a rattle.
Yeah.
But I'm the same thing. I love the rattles. Now, again, if you're anchor fishing in Carolina rig, it's laying on bottom. It's not rattling. So there's really not a point. Now, if you're in a river with heavy current, yes, because that current will still move that. But at that time, I put the rattle in front of the hook. So it'd be behind the swivel in front of the hook, because even in that current, that's still going to move it around.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of flip-flop that too sometimes. And in my trolling rigs, same thing. My Sandy Cooper rigs, I like to do hook, 1 or 2 beads, the Versa rattle, just gives it that little bit of clearance so it can really spin or whatnot. Then I'll have some of dragon ones. I like about somewhere in the 20 inch leader. Mainly because you can move that, and if you have the peg float, obviously if you have your hard body float, the ones we use, the Seeker ones, you can't really move them, so you got to adjust that to however long your leader is. That's how high your bait's going to go. But if you got that peg float, you can move that.
Wait, so your dragon leaders are only 20 inches long total?
Sometimes. I mean, that's if I was to give just an average. Again, I don't like to make everything the same. They're in that 20, 24, Sometimes I go shorter. I mean, sometimes I'll literally only have maybe 16, 18 inches.
Wow, that's interesting because I always thought like with the dragon rigs, like a longer leader with a float is a little bit more of a buffer. So as it skips across the bottom, it's not your bait's not jerking around as much.
Yeah. So again, it's all different action because obviously the longer your leader where you have your float, that's the higher up it's going to ride.
Right.
So if you have a shorter one, it's still going to keep it up off the bottom, but it's going to be just tickling bottom. So even more in depth on that, if you really want to get into it. So windy days, it's just like, to me, they're kind of like walleye. If you have a dead calm day, those cats seem to be closer to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you get a day where you got a really good chop, the more chop, I think the more they rise up, because with light refraction, all that may or may not matter. I don't know. I just know it seems like on the choppy days, you can run that bait higher up off the bottom. And if you got, dead calm, I like to run them closer to the bottom. And that's not always going to work, but it's something it's kind of worked for us.
But I love hearing this because fishing comes down to so much confidence, and I have confidence in running longer leaders, but knowing that you're dragging baits on shorter leaders as a guy who's kicked a lot of people's butts in tournaments tells me that that's a very viable option. So it's good to know, like, that's something worth trying.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, it's the little things that matter. And I mean, it's to the changing baits throughout the day. They might be only biting heads. Ken and I have had tournaments on Red Rock where we started out in the morning. They will only eat a shad head.
Yeah.
We'll have 6 rods out, and 5 of them will have, chunks or full bodies or what. And then 1 rod will have a head on, and that starts hitting. And once we've hit, 2, 3 in a row on that one, not much action on the other ones, boom, you start switching to heads. And then you'll drag for 2-3 hours, and then all of a sudden, no bites. And then the one, you don't switch everything. I hardly ever switch everything. And then all of a sudden, middle sections, it has to be that steak in the middle. They'll only eat that. I mean, and there's a lot of days you can throw whatever, any chunk of bait.
Yeah. Hot dog.
Jimmy Brown, throwing him out there again. He throws tails on. I refuse. I don't care if that's what they're biting on. I don't throw a tail. Like, I ain't doing it.
Jimmy, I'm ashamed.
Now every once in a while, I'll throw 1 rod out with a tail, and then anytime I catch one, I take a picture of it, and I got to send it to him.
Sure.
But it's the little things like that. It's especially in the tournament world. I mean, and a lot of the stuff I base my fishing on is the tournament stuff. But then I just do it so much doing that when I go out fun fishing, it's just what I do now. I mean, everything, it's the little tiny details. And, man, it matters. And just like I said before, when people are like, it's just a channel cat, just throw a piece of bait. It's anything stinky, throw it out there. I don't use stinky stuff.
If you want 6 to 8 inches, that's the way to go.
The fresher, the better.
Shad's pretty stinky.
I love the smell of fresh shad.
It doesn't take long to not be fresh, though.
It doesn't, but it's bait management. If you take care of it, and we can get into that too a little bit, I guess.
And not use 3-day-old shad. That might be.
Well, if you take care of it, and the bigger the shad is, the longer it'll last. Main thing is keep the water off.
It gets stinky. I don't care what you do. 3-day-old shad does not smell good.
I disagree. Dude,
convince
don't put it. Here's the main thing: don't put it in a plastic bag and seal that bag up. That shad will only last a day, maybe 2. Main thing is, and you put it. If you're only going to use it, plan on using it for a day. Yeah, put it in a plastic bag. That's fine. Get a cooler that drains. Fill it with ice. Put a layer of ice in. Put some shad on it. Layer of ice, shad. Layer of ice, shad. And just main thing is no water on it. Make sure that cooler can drain. and those shad, even the smaller ones, will last 3 days.
Boom.
So you just leave your drain open on the boat?
Yep.
Or do you
drain it right onto the floor? That might get a little stinky, but I'll tell you what, wash down systems are amazing.
Hold on, I got a tip for you. I found, thanks to my buddy Seth, there's a screw-in insert to a cooler that you can hook up a hose to it and run it into your drain well, and then it drains out of the boat.
Yep. So I'm lucky enough on our Starcraft. We run a Starcraft STX 2150.
Badass rig.
Absolutely awesome boat, dude. I'm a deep V guy, and I know some guys aren't the deep V guys, but it's the most versatile boat there is. I can fish big water, skinny water. It don't matter. But in the back of ours on each side, there's a big, I think it's about a 4-inch floor drain. So I'll just put my cooler. I usually run like a Yeti. I think is Yeti. I think I got an Arctic maybe, but Yeti's pretty much been my bait cooler, and they got the nice screw. And I'll put that right over that drain. So then most of it drains into there. But if not, you just vinyl floor. Man. Yeah, it's a vinyl floor. Carpet
you throw a channel cat in there anyway.
Yeah, carpet should be illegal. Carpet should be illegal in boats. I still don't understand why they put carpet in boats.
I'm with you on that one.
Well, so I guess we can go back to so the seasons and rigs. So pretty much all summer, all the way. For me, I'll troll baits until here in Iowa, it's about October. I will go down to 50-degree water because they're coming off of the warm, going down to the cold. So they're still active. It's different when they're coming out of the cold, going into the warm. But yeah, sometimes mid-October. I mean, here in Iowa lately, there's end October. We still
right.
But when you get into that 50, but then I'll go gear more towards the colder the water gets. We'll drag baits and then planer boards. That's another thing. We can skip back into that. But for me, for the seasons, so the later it gets, the colder the water gets, dead sticking. Probably shouldn't even tell people this. We've probably caught some of our biggest channel cats dead sticking.
So when you say dead sticking, what do you mean?
It's a lot of people call it a Kentucky rig. You got high-low rig. Essentially, I'll get a long leader. We'll say 24 inches. Just everybody knows kind of what 2 foot is. And I'll put a loop at the bottom of it. And that way I can just, for your bank sinkers, you can just loop, make it interchangeable. And then about 6 inches up from that sinker, I'll make another loop, just an overhand loop. And then you can thread that, through your hook. So the hook's interchangeable also. For channel cats, I don't really do the high-low rig. I just do the low rig. So I'll have a sinker 6 inches up. I'll have a loop with probably a 6/0 triple threat is what we use, the whiskey triple threats. And then I'll have leader, and then I'll have the swivel, which this is mono leader, swivel, right. And then, to your braid. And I'll just drop it so straight down the boat. So the rod is completely what is that? Perpendicular? Is that the right word?
Perpendicular. You mean parallel to the water?
Be parallel to the water, yes.
Yeah.
Straight off the edge of the boat, hanging straight out. And then you just want that rod tip kind of just barely loaded up. But that sinker for the channel cats, I want that sinker ticking bottom. So when you're trolling at 0.5, which is always my go-to trolling, I'll start at 0.5. Early in the year, maybe go a little slower if you can. Midsummer, you can run anywhere from 0.5 to, I've caught them at 1.2 mile an hour. You got to kind of vary that. But again, so the dead sticking, and it's just so that bait on bottom, that sinker is just ticking bottom as you're trolling. You'll see your rod tip will lift and then drop, lift and drop. And man, that's dangerous. They'll smoke it. And so a lot of times, again, with three rods, we'll run a dead stick off of each side next to the captain chair and co-pilot chair. And then I'll have a rod dragging a bait, most of the time with a planer board off the back corners. And then you can run that planer board out as far as you want. Amy runs hers a little closer to the boat. I like to really get mine out there. Again, variety. You got to have variety. And then the back rods, I run them babies. I dump them. I'm notorious for dumping a whole spool. Mainly because I push the button, I cast it out, and I push the button, and then I get doing other stuff, and I forget to lock it down until I look back, and I'm to the backing, or I'm to the knot.
Wait, so while I'm thinking of it, you're dead sticking. Is that more of a quality thing or a quantity thing, or both?
It's both. It's both.
So you get numbers and size?
Numbers and size.
What do you think the reason is?
I have no idea. But it just seems like after, I'd say late summer to fall. I don't know why. And now that also only really works in about 10 foot of water and deeper. If you're shallower than that, then I think maybe the trolling motor might spook them or something. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah.
But man, it's cool when they hit. I will say probably the most violent hit I've ever seen, and this is for all species, and it's up there. I shouldn't say most. It's in the top 3 of the most violent hits I've ever seen. Ken and I were fishing the Calamus tournament, the catfish chasers out there in Calamus, Burwell, Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
He was using the cat and carp rods, and he was using the Aluez, the 300s.
Alios.
Yeah, whatever, however you say them.
They had to tell me how to say it because I didn't know either.
Yeah, but they got like a 30-pound max drag on them.
Right.
And so he's running the cat and carp rod with, I believe it was 60-pound braid, and we was dead sticking in about 25 foot of water. And I think this was the year that we won it. And that lake was my bugaboo big time. But he had just got snagged maybe, if it could go wrong, it would go wrong.
Gotcha.
He just got snagged maybe, 30 minutes before that. Well, to break it, he maxed the drag out to get it to pop. Well, he never backed the drag off. So it had 30-pound drag on a cat and carp rod, which is more or less a bass rod.
Right.
It was dead sticking that thing.
Not a stout bass rod.
Yeah. We come off a ledge into the channel, and I think he had just dropped down, clicked in, and maybe a minute later, that rod just went. Of course, it's like this off the edge of the boat. You just see thump, and it just goes down. And there's only channel cat in this lake. I don't think there's the F word in there.
Could have been the Loch Ness.
And I don't even think maybe that's what it was. I'm pretty sure. There's 30-pound plus channel cats in this lake, and it hit that rod and just bent it all the way down, almost like it was snagged. But you could tell from the bite. It wasn't. Plus the line was swimming off.
Right.
Snags don't swim off, and he couldn't get it out of the rod holder, and the drag locked up. And man, we thought the rod was going to snap. It didn't. And he just about got it out of the rod holder, and twink, the line broke. And
you broke 60-pound line on a channel cat.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
That is.
Yeah.
Well,
on a catfishing carp rod.
Well, the bait casters are a little stouter than the spinning ones, but is Calamus where the state record came from in Nebraska?
Probably. If not, I'm guessing it probably has it in there. I don't remember if they shocked it. I think that's where the state record came from.
I'll Google it while you're talking more about that. But Calamus, I've heard nothing but crazy things about the size of the channel cats out there.
Dude, it's awesome. And it's crazy where you can catch them. I never thought you could catch channel cats in 50 foot of water. I always thought that they were, 20 foot, all that. And that's a fun lake. It's in the middle of nowhere, but man,
that's Nebraska.
White bass, catching the white bass is fun. They got pike in there. They got walleye in there. They got wipers in there. Obviously,
were you catching them on the bottom in 50 foot, or were they suspended?
Yeah, on the bottom. Didn't see too many suspended, really. Most of them were on the bottom.
Was it hot? Like water temp hot?
Yeah, most of the time we were out there. It was, I think, August. The one year it was really hot, and then one year it was really stormy and it wasn't hot. It was actually almost cold. And thank God we had the big old great orca starcraft, because we was dragging bait. And there you almost have to put the drift sock out. If it's dead calm, it's almost impossible to get those fish to bite. I was so excited. We had a dead calm day finally after like the second, third year going out there. And I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna chew these channel cats up. I'm gonna run that trolling motor. I'm gonna run ledges. I'm gonna run all this crazy stuff. We couldn't get a fish to bite. And then the wind picked up. We had 3-foot rollers, white capping.
And here they come.
So you're not rolling into that. I mean, it's just not happening. So you turn around and man, it was awesome. But there was waves. I never took a wave fully over the back of that boat. But I had one splash in. It went almost 3/4 of the way up the motor and hit the splash well and splashed up. And
I've seen your boat. If a wave comes in over the transom of your boat, that's not any kind of water you want to be on.
It was pretty crazy.
Brian beat me to it. I was looking down, Googling shit, and I look up, and Merritt Reservoirs where the state record came out of, which makes sense. I don't know what it is about Nebraska. Nebraska grows giant channel cats. Like there are so many lakes in Nebraska that have giants, and like little under the radar ones too. But then you got your big ones like Merritt and Calamus that have mega.
And giant. The walleye in some of those reservoirs seem to be ginormous too.
Yeah.
Like on average. I got a couple buddies that have relatives out there, and they go out walleye fishing a couple times a year. And I mean, it's nothing to have a stringer full of 26, 28-inch walleye.
I bet McConaughey has giant channels in it.
Yeah, because I just wish it wasn't so far away. Like,
oh, dude, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's like for you, it's got to be 11 hours, 10.
It's 8 hours to Burwell.
Okay, so that's actually closer than I thought, but it's still a long ways away.
Yep.
See, that's my hang up with some of those channel cat destinations is like I could drive 8 hours to the Red River in North Dakota. Ryan's dying.
Yeah. I've been fighting frickin' head cold for a week.
But I could drive 8 hours to the Red River in North Dakota, or I could drive 5 hours to Alton, down by St. Louis and have a shot at 100+ pounder down there. And I've been taking the shorter drive.
Yep. Yeah. For me, the older I get, the only thing I don't like is people. It's the only thing that kind of deters me from even some of the good Missouri River spots, the Mississippi, when you get down there like St. Louis.
Dude,
St.
Louis is
it's
crowded.
Not safe, man. There's a lot of places that are not safe.
Yeah.
You got to know where to go. I'm not saying that I shouldn't say that they're not safe, because I don't want to tell people that. And
there are places
you get into places where it's not safe.
Like if you put in downtown St. Louis, nobody leaves their boats in after dark.
Yeah.
It's not by accident.
Yep.
But yeah, I get that. Now, one thing I appreciate about the Missouri River is you can get away from people on the Missouri River. Granted, if somebody wants to run a long ways, they can, but so can you, and you won't see that many people, and I like that. And it's not that far of a drive.
We've spent whole weekends out there, and the fishing was great, and we didn't see anybody.
Right. Yeah,
I like the sandbars. The sandbars, as long as the river's not bank full, but like you're just like me, like camping on the sandbars. Amy and I just love doing that, and even here on our Iowa River for the channel cats, we like taking the John boat out, and I mean that's where John Boat Mafia started, was getting a group of guys and running John boats up and down the Iowa River, and we did a little fishing, a little other, just cruising.
You had a good time.
Drinking beers, and then all of a sudden the John boats start jumping log jams and doing John Boat Mafia stuff, but.
Yeah, there's no place I'd rather be.
Yeah.
That's vacation for me.
Joel brought up a good question. He said, where's the new state record channel cat in Iowa? And we'll get to his question, but it made me think of a different one. What do you think about the current state record channel cat in Iowa?
Man, I don't know. I think it's the B word. I'm
uncertain, man. Like, I look at the picture and it kind of looks like the B word, but I'm not positive it's the B word. And then you add into the fact that it came out of the Missouri River. And it's like, probably.
If it wasn't out of the Missouri, I probably wouldn't question it.
It's that close, yeah.
But and the time frame that it was, yeah.
Then on to Joel's question, where's the new state record channel in Iowa? If you want to, I know where I think. I don't know if I even want to share.
I will. Okoboji.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because I really don't think there's going to be a big flood of people going up there and because nobody fishes for channel cats up there.
Do you think there's really a 40-pounder in there?
I know for a fact there's one that was pretty close.
Okay. I've heard of a 36.
So if there's a 36, 4 pounds, that's
you just got to eat a 5-pound carp. He's there.
Yeah.
And if he couldn't eat the 5-pound carp, he'd damn well try.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Just
he'd at least get 4 pounds of it.
Oh no. He'll just swim around with it half swallowed, just like in the spring when you catch them channel cats with the shad tails sticking out of their mouth.
Absolutely.
And they're still eating.
Yeah, I need to get up there. It's just
that's a tough fishery.
Far away.
Yeah, it is.
Like for me, man, I'm a lot closer than you, and it's still 3-hour drive.
Yeah. Well, to me, 3 hours, that's a 1-day trip.
That's true.
I mean, that's up and back. But we're not probably as intelligent as most people. And I shouldn't say that. We're just maybe go getter. I mean, Amy and I drove out to Ohio to fish with would be the Ohio was it West Virginia border to fish with Justin and Tabitha, Connor and Tabitha Linville. We drove out 10 hours one way. We drove out there, spent the night, woke up, fished with Justin and Tabitha all day, turned around and drove home.
Holy crap.
Now we did stop in Indiana. We stopped at our buddy Claude Reynolds. We stopped at his place, which is it's maybe three or 4 hours from there. Or else we would have just kept going, but we stopped there just to chit chat and spent the night there. So yeah, we've pretty much done it. Well, that first chick fight down in Alabama.
Yeah. Which was not an actual chick fight. It was a fishing tournament.
Fishing tournament, and all gals tournament. A male could drive the boat if they weren't comfortable with that, but they couldn't do anything. But it was all the women did everything pretty much. We left, I believe we left on a Friday, got down there Friday afternoon, and that's when we had just got the boat. The first time I'd ever really drove the boat.
And was it broke in?
No. Well, with the E-Tech, I didn't have to break it in. That's just plug and you just go.
Gotcha.
That's a shame they quit making those, but
agreed.
That's a different story. But anyway, so Amy, and so then I ended up, we stayed at a house with some people, and I ended up drinking all night long. I think I got about 2 hours of sleep. Got up, Amy and Ann White, they fished the tournament. I just drove the boat for them. They told me where to go, and they fished the tournament, and we got done. We weighed in, we turned around and headed for home. That was a 12-hour trip that we did pretty much straight through.
You're an animal.
So yeah, 3 hours. 3 hours. 3 hours isn't really much.
My rule of thumb is if it takes, and I look at the round trip. So if it's a 6-hour round trip, I have to fish at least 12. That's my rule, or more, 12 or more. So, or if it's a 12-hour, a 12-hour one way, it'd be a 24-hour round trip. I got to fish at least 48. That's my rule.
Yeah, we don't. I just fish as long as Amy tells me. She's like, all right, we absolutely have to go. I got about 30 more last casts, a few more minutes, all that. But
yeah.
You're just an animal, though, man. You're tougher than me.
I like to fish, man. I get literally like I would love to do the guide thing. I just don't want my passion to turn into something, that not. And I did dabble last year. Dabbled a little bit. Did a couple trips. Helped Jimmy out with with the chasing cats. He had a couple trips where it was, and he needed another boat. And I was like, yeah, man, I'll do that. And man, I loved it. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's good time.
And then I had some time off work where we was a little slow, and I was like, well, I'll just throw it out there. If people are always like, oh man, I'd pay you to go fishing and all that. I'm like, I don't know. Most of the time we just take people fishing. And I was like, well, I'm a little short on money, so this time I'm not going to turn it down. And so I did a couple trips and absolutely loved it. But I don't think I could just stop working and do that. And of course, one of the trips, I don't remember if you saw the pictures. I'm 100% sure you did, but at Red Rock, that
mega flathead,
60-pound flathead.
Yeah,
on the cat and carp rod.
We'll allow the F word in this moment because that is a special fish.
Yeah. Dragging two, I think I had three 3-inch shad on a hook. And
the Carolina, three-headed dragon.
Sandy Cooper rig dragging just a wide open mud flat. I mean, there's no, maybe there's some structure, there's some logs and stuff out there. But man, that fish hit. And my buddy Eric, and then he had his boy with him, and we'd already stuck like some awesome channel cats, like 8-9 pound channel cats, and this was maybe 2 hours into it, and his boy was like, he's already getting worn out, and he knew how them channel cats hit and how how they fought, and that rod went down, and I reeled down on it, but there was no point because the line was just peeling out. And I was like, Emmett, I'm like, you want this? He's like, I want nothing to do with that. And so I'm standing there by this thing, and I'm like, Eric, I'm like, you want these? He's like, no, man, you reel one in. I'm like, dude, you need to reel. One of you need to reel this one. I knew
you don't understand what's going on here.
No, I didn't know that it was going to be a 60-pounder. Like I'm thinking, at first I'm thinking like a big channel cat, 12, 13 pound channel cat, because I didn't have the drag set super tight. Mm-hmm. And man, he's fighting that thing, and he's fighting it, and it kind of swims, and then it pulls, and it got straight up and down, and man, he's just
you can't move
it. He's used to walleye fishing and stuff, and he's sitting there just I'm like, whoa, I'm like, slow down. I'm like, just fight it, wear him out. And finally, man, that head came up, and first I saw the tail, the swirl, and I'm like, at first I was like 20-pounder. Then I'm like, man, that might be like a 30-pounder or whatever. And as soon as that head came up, I'm literally like looking at him. I'm like, dude, don't freak out. Don't freak out. I literally wasn't telling that to him. I was telling it to myself.
Yeah, right. Absolutely right.
And I've got the small whisker seeker net, the extender.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that, and I'm like, man, I don't know. I'm like, do I just go hands on this thing? And by that time, it was so played out that it came up, and I'm like, all right, I've got one shot at this. I'm like, I need you to lift up, and then I'm going to scoop, and I'm like, then just drop the rod. And I got about 3/4 of that fish and head into that net. Like I was past the pectoral fins, and I'm like, oh, we got him now, because he had them fins on. I'm like, oh, he's stuck. I'm like, we got him. And he's like, you need help lifting it in? I'm like, no, I'm good. I'll lift it in. I'm like, didn't even move it. I'm like, yeah, I need some help.
Well, to add to your story, and I don't know if you knew this or if I told you this, I didn't post it on social media or anything. A few days, I can't remember if it was a few days before, a few days before after, I was out there and I had a client reeling a 24-pounder, probably in a similar area based on what you're saying. And then before they landed that fish, they busted another one off because they put their thumb on the spool while they were fighting it. But So yeah, I don't know what it was about that time frame, but they were there.
Yeah.
And you got the freaking gong show. I've seen one 60-pound flathead in my entire life. And I didn't catch it, but
I've never seen one up close. 40 is my biggest. I've netted a 45, and that was actually on my rod, but that was down in Alabama. I was cooking bacon in the front of the boat, and my rod went off, and I'm like, somebody else got to get this. Like, I thought it was the B word, and I literally had bacon that was submerged in bacon grease, trying, like, needed to come off. I'm like, I'm either going to burn a pound of bacon or catch
don't
the fish.
burn the bacon.
Now, if I would have known that it was a 45 pounder, because that'd have been 10 pounds bigger than my PB at the time.
Right.
Yeah. I would have definitely burnt. I would have burnt the bacon. I would have gladly burnt the bacon, and I'd have thrown the whole skillet and everything in the water if I had to. All right, let's get back to them channel cats.
Yeah, those F words are a special fish, but we're here for the channel cats.
Yep. So I believe we're to like fall now.
Okay.
So after the whole, dead sticking, dragging some baits, all that, October, 50-degree water. A lot of times we'll, like, Ken lives up there in Cedar Rapids, which is about 35 minutes north of me. He's got the Cedar River, and he's right above the dam there. So we put it in Ellis, and that's a pretty good stretch right there for channel. You're not going to get a lot of big ones. We catch a lot of the, your 2 to 7 pound, 6 pound fish, but you can catch there's opportunity to catch some 10s and 12s, and there's a little Corey pond pit, whatever, right off of there, that even ice fishing, we've caught some 12 pounders ice fishing. But we like to go there, and then you're doing the anchor up again. You're trying to find deeper sections, you're slower moving. It's a lot of slow current there. There's not a lot of fast current.
Right.
But then same thing, we'll size way down. I don't really switch to the J hooks. I just size like the 4/0 triple threats. The small circle Ks, the whiskey circle Ks. But Carolina rig, we'll throw one out with a Sandy Cooper with the float rig, but most of the time I'm running the dead stick, the same thing with the sinker, the hook about 4 to 6 inches up, and just dangling that's dropped straight over the side of the boat. Heavy enough sinker that you don't want it really much further than like a 45-degree angle, as straight up and down as you can get it. I prefer that.
Mm-hmm.
Now I will go back. I'll also, if I do the high-low rig with that's one thing I should throw out there. I will do the high-low rig. That's where you have the sinker, the hook, and then I'll do another loop about 6 to 8 inches above the other one, maybe a foot above the other one. So you have 2 hooks, but you have a big spread. So you're fishing close to bottom and then up high. But I'll cast that thing. I call that my trout line rig. It reminds me, and man, I'm talking even for the B words and the F words, throwing cut bait on those. Man, I'll catch them. And
you don't have to tell me, but I'm a big fan of the high-low rig for the F words.
Yep. Yeah. But casting them, it's crazy. And I love that for the channel cats. And same thing, you switch it up. But yeah, in that late fall, early summer, when that water's cold, and then even at Corville Reservoir, we'll go into the deeper spots of the lake, and this is November. You're getting in that 45 degree, and if you can find where all that bait's staging up, and that's where we'll just dead stick everything. It's just like spider rigging. I'd give it the same concept as spider rigging for crappies, only you're fishing on the bottom. Yeah. And it's almost the exact same setup as that. Like a drop shot rig, I guess. If you're a bass guy and you want to know what that is, it's I would guess it's kind of like a drop shot rig, only you're putting cut bait on there. But same thing. Main thing is the colder the water, you want to size that bait down way small. And to me, shad's always king. Shad and shad guts.
So we went through most of the seasons. That got me thinking when you said shad. Do you have any tips for catching shad? That you
when you really need shad, you're not going to find them.
Okay.
When you don't need shad, they're going to be so thick.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Or if you don't have a cast net. That was me yesterday. I was fishing a causeway and I couldn't reel my lure in because the shad were so thick and I didn't have a cast net.
Yeah. You got to put some treble hooks on, put something on. You sit there and get shad that way. But no, catching shad, man, I don't know. I guess I don't know if I really even have any tips. Learn how to throw a cast net.
That's a good tip.
That's step one.
Learn it. Use yard. Don't do it around the water.
Use the biggest legal net you can use. If you can use a 10-foot net, throwing a 3-footer, you might as well. Yeah, I mean, unless they're now, I will say if they're like as thick as you said they were, you don't want to throw the 10-foot. Here's a tip: don't throw a 10-foot net on solid shad because you're not going to be able to pull that net up.
You can dump it out if you have to, though.
I don't know what that is. Why would you dump them out? That's not the purpose.
I will say, spending time down south, man, because in Iowa you can only throw a 5-foot net. You guys all know that, but not everyone listening does. And a 5-foot net almost feels useless now.
Yeah, it sucks.
I have a hard time catching them in a 10-footer or lots of times. So throw 5-footer. If they're deeper than 3 feet, a 5-footer is a step away from worthless.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can, one thing, a guy can add weights. It's tough to get a heavy 5-foot net. Most of them either have like the fake lead.
Joyfish. Bait buster. Joyfish and bait buster throw or you can get a 5-foot net that's 1.5 pounds per foot.
Yep.
But
that would be. Yep.
I think they're $150.
Yeah. Now, once again, I'll pimp the sponsor. I've been pretty happy with the Whisker Seeker throw nets that they came out with. They got a bunch of different sizes and weights, so that's nice. So you have an option.
Did they come out with a 5-footer, or is it just a 4 and a 6?
Man, you're putting me on the spot. I feel like
I'm pretty sure I got a 5.
I think they got a 5.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I'm throwing a 4.
Right.
No, I'm pretty sure I got a 5.
Yeah. But now, so like if you want, if you need a heavier net, you can take, which a lot of people, I mean, you're going to trash a net. I mean, it's a given.
Yeah.
You're going to trash a net.
Never name your cast net. Don't get too attached.
No, I had one. I literally had it for 4 years.
What?
I had so many. I literally have spent hours stitching that up because it just got to the point where I'm like, man, this is my net. This is my lucky net. But if you shred a net, man, cut them. If the main thing is like if you're using the lead, like the real lead, the cool thing is at least if you shred it and you make your own sinkers, which if you're a catfisherman, get a do-it mold melting pot and sinker because you're going to save so much money doing that. It's tough to find lead, but with the shad nets, you can cut all that lead off. But you can also take those and then tie them so you can double your weight. So even a 5-footer can be effective.
That's a good idea.
A really hot tip on that.
And I just checked. Whisker Seeker has a 5, 6, 7, and 8-foot net. Those are the sizes they offer.
Gotcha. And I know they got different mesh sizes too. And then also you got to, same thing. You got to check your rules. Every state's different on sizes and mesh sizes. And, but a lot of times checking below your dams. If you got a dam, check below those. And a lot of times they'll be close to the edge. Like last year below the Coralville tube all year long. I mean, you could just walk down there with, we use the extender net, which you get a little longer handle, and it had the smaller mesh on the dip net. And I'd walk down there, one scoop, half full 5-gallon bucket, done. I'm out. Last year was the best year ever on catching bait. I mean, it's never like that. Usually it's so hard to catch bait.
Don't pretend it's ever going to be like that again.
Yep. You know, and this is probably one of them. I share probably too much information, but it's definitely a timeline thing. But when your lakes freeze, right as soon as the ice goes out, I mean, there's still ice on it, but you might have 5-6 foot from the bank to the edge of the ice. Go to your shallow parts of the lake, and those shad will swim right up to the bank in monster schools. And you can just sit there and you can dip net them. You can throw your little throw net on them and fill a 5-gallon bucket. But you have about 2, maybe 3 days. And it's not every one of them. You know, it's not every lake. We got some small places around here. You can do that, but it's definitely a time thing. I mean, you have to drop everything when you say, oh man, I see the ice is melting off. You got to go. And a sunny day. If you get a sunny day, and Spencer, I think I sent you that video of what we did earlier, a week or so, or however many days ago it was.
Yeah.
And I gutted them. Gutted them and then vac sealing, and that's for the ice out bite too. I don't like using frozen shad. Bait wise, there's a lot of guys even all year long. Sometimes you have to. That's all you got. You have to.
Mm-hmm.
But I will I'll spend more time trying to get fresh bait than I will fishing sometimes.
Oh yeah. And
that's because I want to catch bigger fish, but I just want to catch more fish. You can go out there on the lake and have, crappy bait, year-old frozen shad, which shad just doesn't freeze good. But if you're going to, I freeze it, vac seal it, wipe the slime off with paper towels, make sure they're kind of dry when you put them in there. And then when you go to thaw them, cut the bag open, dump them on your cooler on ice out of the bag, and then let them thaw that way. That helps.
Yeah.
Getting as mushy.
Keeps the blood in them too.
Yep. But I'll spend so much time using fresh bait. I'd rather I'll catch bluegills, again, where it's legal to use them, and cut them up, use them for bait. I mean, if it's got scales, it's bait. Sometimes even if it doesn't have scales, it's bait. Come to find out, channel cats will eat chunked up bullheads.
Or each other.
Yeah.
Or each other.
Yeah.
And I know the B words and the F words will eat anything.
Yeah.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if it's got skin or if it's got scales.
Yeah.
If it's got feathers and fur, they'll eat it.
Yes. No, I've definitely seen B words eat B words. Which if somebody were to just cut that out of the podcast and just audio clip, that would sound weird. But in this, they really do. They don't care.
Yeah.
No.
I got something for you guys. What's the craziest piece of bait you've thrown out for any species, just for catfish? The craziest bait.
I saw my dad catch a largemouth on a Twizzler one time.
I mean, that's just like a red Cinco.
Yeah, but he just cast it out. He cast it out and took a nap. The freaking rod about went in the water. He reeled it in. There was like a 5-pound largemouth on a Twizzler.
That's great. You could probably catch me on a Twizzler. It wouldn't be that hard. No, I'd say probably the craziest bait that I've caught a fish on, the top two, and it's more of size than anything else. Like I caught a flathead on about a 4-pound carp. And then I caught a blue cat on the head of a 15-pound silver.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
You're throwing bowling balls out there.
And they weren't even that big of like crazy big fish. Like I caught I think it was 28 pounds on the 4-pound carp. I caught a 43-pounder on a 3-pound largemouth though. And then the one the blue cat that ate the silver carp head was probably like 40 or 45.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just wedged in his mouth. You didn't even need a hook.
Yeah, I didn't have a hook.
I don't know, man. Like the bait was gone. Like he was just hooked and the bait wasn't there when I reeled him in. I just remembered what rod I had that bait on. But it had sat out there all night and the fish, like I threw it out right at dark and the fish bit right at daylight. And that's what I woke up to, was that rod screaming. And when I saw which rod it was, I was thinking like 100-pounder. And then, I mean, a 40-pounder is a really, really, really nice fish. Don't get me wrong, but
good way to start a day.
When you have a 3-pound piece of bone, you know, sitting out there on the bottom, you just assume a Megatron's what's going to eat it.
Yeah, man, I feel bad about even saying what my baits were. Then I shouldn't say me. For legality terms, I didn't use these baits.
Okay,
I may have seen somebody use these baits.
Well, in Iowa, you can use whatever you want as long as you catch it on rod and reel, and it's legal.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think muskrats count, but I'd like to use a muskrat.
I caught one underground in my yard, and that was a mole. I mean, I saw somebody catch a mole and use it. I ended up catching a gar on it.
What's wrong with using a mole?
I don't know. I just don't know legality terms. I don't know if that's legal to use or not.
You get
the other one, a rabbit.
Like a chunk or a whole one?
A whole one. A baby.
What'd you catch?
A mid-sized baby rabbit. And it was on the Des Moines River. And I don't even know why I had it. I really don't. But I peeled the skin off of it, and I put 2 hook rig in it, and in the top and the bottom, and I threw it into a brush pile. And something hit it, and I never got it stopped, and I never caught it. I had 20-pound drag and 60-pound braid, 60 or 80-pound braid, and I never stopped it, and it went into the log jam and never got him.
Shit, no rabbit's safe now, buddy.
I thought it was a goof. I'm like, check this out. This is gonna be awesome. I did that, and yeah.
Well, they're bloody. You know, I'm sure they left a hell of a scent trail.
Oh yeah, the rabbit guts stink too. I mean,
yeah.
But you see what fish will eat. I mean, even a channel cat, what they can put in their mouth. I mean, I've heard stories, and I'm sure you have too. Guys especially down there in St. Louis. I know a couple guys that St. Louis and in Missouri, they catch big B words. And one of them was a tournament, and this was quite a while ago. And this is early 2000s. And they opened their live well a little bit later, and there was a muskrat swimming around in there.
I believe it. So
I'm telling you, like I've been meaning if I catch muskrats to keep some and use them for bait. The only problem is usually I catch a muskrat and I eat them myself because they are delicious.
Yeah,
and there's not a ton of them like there used to be either.
No,
they're coming back. I got quite a few the last couple of years, but yeah, when I was in high school back in the mid '90s, they were in every creek, every pond. They were everywhere.
Yep.
So to add to that, I got a buddy in Texas who caught a 15-pound blue cat, and he filleted it out, and it had 2 painted turtles in its stomach, like not giant big ones, but like, I don't know, 4-inch wide ones.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I literally don't think there's anything safe that could not be used for bait for catfish.
My favorite crazy ass bait story, and then I'll say this one, and then we'll do the last cast and call her good. But shark fishing, I have a buddy who will remain nameless. He was kind of crazy. He's still kind of crazy. That never changed. But he had a hard time finding bait, so he was rummaging around in a dumpster by a fish cleaning station. There was no fish in it, but he found a dead seagull. So that's all he got. So he hooked the dead seagull on and kayaked it out and caught a tiger shark on it, which that's kind of like one of your more pinnacle shark species. So we're camping out on a deserted island, and this is so illegal, I don't even know if I should share it, but nobody knows who I'm talking about, so I'm gonna. We had plenty of bait, but he was so convinced that seagulls were the way to go.
That's the shit. Yeah.
he took a spinning rod and put a piece of baloney on it, and he put the treble hook baited baloney on the sand, and then like covered the line up with sand to like camouflage it, and was like pulling line off a spinning reel, and he went behind a tent to hide. And I'm just sitting there like watching all of this. Freaking seagull comes down, picks it up, flies away with it. He's free spooling line, and as soon as
flying a kite.
Yeah, you watch it chomp chomp down the hatch, and then he flips it in gear, and it's like this invisible force. Just the seagull's flying and just gets knocked back, and he reels it in behind the tent and then dispatches it. And
hey, I'll say it. If cat fishermen, I mean, no lie, anything's bait unless it's a spotted owls, bald eagles, off limits.
Sure.
I mean, other than that, legal, maybe not legal, but if that's what catches fish, I like to catch fish.
I've had a lot of bait trips that sucked just because they were hard to catch and hot out. That wouldn't have sucked. That'd been a good time.
Catching the seagulls.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He got bit on it. He missed it got bit very quickly, and then he missed the fish, and the bait was gone. So we don't know what hit it, but it wasn't out there very long.
Yeah, he might be onto something. I bet that's not the only time he's caught a seagull out.
Oh, and it's probably not the only time since. I can't bring myself to do something like that, but
yeah, I've had to have a hard time with that, but depends how many adult beverages the guys had. But,
I don't mind killing a
but
bird.
again, if that's what they're biting on.
I've shot a lot of pheasants. I don't know. There's just something about the seagulls. Not that I have a soft spot for them. Maybe it's mainly because I'm not going to eat them. Like if I'm going to kill a bird, I'm probably going to eat it. So to use it for bait, I ain't going to knock somebody for doing it.
Speaking of birds, the Missouri River, another crazy bait that guys over there like snow goose, man.
Really?
Those guys, snow goose guts.
Well, they killed a bunch of them over there in northwest Missouri.
And that's like this time of year and on. I've heard stories of guys that, man, they knock the heck out of them on the, they'll go out and shoot a bunch of snow goose. Or the guides over there, they'll just give that stuff away because they clean the birds for everybody. And
right.
2 years ago when Amy and I, did that snow goose hunt, and it was awesome. It was like one of the coolest hunts ever. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to keep, some of them guts, because even here, on Corville, I was like, man, I'll just put some smaller pieces on because we get the snow geese that come into Corville and up there on the mud flats at Ice Out. And honestly, this was probably 3 years ago. It's 2 or 3 years ago now. Went out there and we was fishing. It was early. And this water, literally we were in like a foot of water, and there's nothing but just the refuge is right above us, and there's flow coming through. There's like snow goose feathers, and then you look over and there's a dead snow goose floating by, and I'm like, man, great for that. And so that's why when we did that hunt, I was like, man, I'll keep that, because it was in early March. I'm like, I'll try to keep some of the guts, and I ended up not keeping any. And but the funny thing is, when we was fishing out there at Corville, my rod, I didn't quite have it in the rod holder. I'm like, they weren't biting. They were just doing that tappy tap. Well, it was later in the afternoon. The sun had been out all day, and it warmed up. And it was like, man, it hadn't been close to 70 degrees that day. And all of a sudden, it was one of the cat and carp rods, the spinning ones. I'm like, the reel will catch on the the rod holder or something. Man, that fish hit that thing so hard, that rod flipped up. I jumped up out of the John boat seat, and I got my rod holders. Now they got the 2 prongs, and then that's where the rod goes through. And I had it just laying like this. My buddy Brad was sitting next to me in a lawn chair, and I had to miss him. And I literally dove out of the boat. It was kind of a reel they didn't really make too many of them reels. I just wanted the reel back, honestly. And I freaking limped, dove out. Damn near hooked my nuts on the rod holder. I hooked my inner thigh. I had a bruise pretty much from pretty much my, the top inner thigh all the way down to my knee, just drugging on that thing. Belly flopped into the water, got the rod, stood up. I had it was so shallow, I had mud smeared on my chest. And like I said, this is where, all the snow goose poop and feathers, and it's disgusting freaking water. I come up and my mustache, I think I might even had like the longer stash at the time, like that's just dripping off that. Lost my sunglasses, but I stood up and by the time I sunk in the mud, I was about waist deep. And I believe it was our buddy Brad Keitel, Amy, and then I think John Gillard. And I stand up. Amy's worried I'm going to be so mad because I had to jump in. I stand up. I'm just dying laughing. Still caught the fish. I'm standing there, caught the fish, and all I hear, Brad, I think I knocked him over in the chair, and John was up front, and he's about ready to pee himself. He's laughing so hard, and yeah, that's my snow goose in the shallow water. But I think snow goose would work.
No, snow goose is safe now. Not that they really were before either.
No.
Mind you, the ice had just come off a week before. So that water was not exactly a little bit. But yeah, so that was my hoorah story. But yeah, what else you got, Spencer?
Well, that's going to lead us into the good old last cast, which is the opportunity for you to talk about whatever the hell you want to talk about. Sponsor plugs, your plugs, John Boat Mafia plugs, or just like a good old tip about catfishing.
Yeah, well, let me got to throw the sponsors out there. Amy and I have been pretty blessed to work with some pretty good companies. Whisker Seeker, we've been with them from the start. I love their products. Literally from the start when Matt made it, he was making the rigs in his garage. Became friends with him and then got on board, and it's just kind of come up. There's a lot of stay tuned. Got a lot more new products coming out this year. Some pretty exciting stuff. But other than Whisker Seeker, Striker, Spencer, you kind of know like the Striker stuff, and I don't know. I think Ryan, you dabble in the Striker stuff too a little bit, or
I've got some. I'm not affiliated with them. But yeah, I
definitely
have it.
Yes, great company, great products. They're ice fishing gear, but they branched out to open water gear. Your a lot of UPF shirts, very, very, very comfortable hats. But the ice gear is top notch.
The rain gear is some of the best that's out there as well. Yeah.
Yep.
You gotta pay for it, but man, is it good. When it comes to fishing gear, paying for stuff, it's better to pay for stuff.
Yeah. If you don't want to be miserable, spend the money.
Yep. And, the rain gear and then like the ice gear too. And man, this year, I'll plug Striker, but man, we've lost quite a few fishermen here in the Midwest and mainly here in Iowa. And there's been 4 or 5, I think, that have passed away this year out ice fishing on sketchy ice. Man, the ice suits are, and they even have like, I shouldn't say bargain ones, but I feel fairly, $500 for a suit, that's a lot of money, but man, if you fall through the ice, you're dead.
Yeah.
If you got them float suits, they save you. That's one thing I would tell people, spend the money, and it doesn't even matter if it's Striker, there's a lot of good
floating ice suits.
Yes. But yeah, so then Striker, Starcraft, love our Starcraft boat. There's a lot of great boats out there, but I'll tell you, that Striker STX, I can go in 12 inches of water, obviously not wide open. When we do that, we're idling, but it'll float in 12 inches of water. And then, like I said, we're in 3.5 foot rollers drifting with a big ass drift sock out the back, and we were safe.
Do you have a jack plate on that, or you just trim it up and go?
I just trim it up and go. Let's see who else we got. Norsk batteries, lithium. Same thing. You're paying for it. Yeah, you can get stuff on Amazon for cheap, but when they go to crap, and they more than likely will, not trying to knock other products, but you do get what you pay for, and then also the support. If something does go wrong with the battery, Norsk is right here. Mainly they're in the Midwest, so shipping something somewhere is pretty quick. Customer service is awesome. We really haven't had any issues. We run ice batteries to the lithium batteries and the trolling motor batteries in our boat. Amazing. Let's see what else we got.
I think the support's the biggest thing, because no matter how much you spend on something, anything that works can quit working. So if you have a company that's going to like follow through on taking care of the people who spend the money on their product, that says a lot. So
yeah.
And a big thing with them is it's a 10-year warranty, and it's non-prorated. So from everything they've told me, like, I believe at like year 9, if something goes wrong and they can't fix it, I think it's a full replacement.
Nice.
Not, completely 100% sure on that, but I'm about 99% sure. But I know they work with people. But again, everything from ice batteries to the live scope, or the Mega Live, to the trolling motor batteries. Pro Marine out of Mediapolis, Iowa. Danny Combs and his guys, they are some of the best boat mechanics. They specialize in Yamaha. They're a Yamaha dealer, and I believe G3 for boats, but he'll work on pretty much anything. And those boys are good. Can't say enough about them, and they're trustworthy. The main thing, I've dealt with a lot of through the years, boat mechanics. You get some shady mechanics, and then you get some trustworthy people, and Danny and them are as trustworthy as you can get, and honest. They're not going to try to hose you on parts and all that stuff. They're very honest. And then we also picked up Widowmaker this year. They're more of a ice fishing company, but they're an Iowa company. Super awesome guys. They got great ice jigs. They got some other stuff.
Where are they based out of in Iowa? I've never heard of them.
You never heard of Widowmaker?
They were ice fish.
I literally left Iowa to avoid ice fishing.
Missing out, man. Ice fishing is some of the funnest stuff, especially with the Mega Lives. It's cheating, like I said earlier. But their home base was out of Swisher, but I believe they may have moved warehouse to like the Des Moines area. But originally they're out of Swisher, Iowa, which is in between Iowa City, Cedar Rapids.
Gotcha.
So they're a local company. Super awesome people. Crap.
You have more sponsors?
Yeah, I feel like I'm leaving somebody out. John Boat Mafia, but that's me. So that's Amy and I.
Google it, Facebook it, John Boat Mafia.
I wish we'd post more on our John Boat Mafia page, but I don't know. You're better off just to follow Amy Hansen and I. I don't know. I post a lot of goofy stuff,
which is appreciated.
Yeah. Oh, Parks planter boards. That's one thing we never talked about. So I don't know. I'll go last cast on them.
I was going to ask you what planter board you use, and I actually met Kevin Parks for the first time at Catfish Conference last week.
He's awesome. Super
really,
nice guy.
Really nice, easygoing guy.
Yes, and I'll tell you, he's probably one of the best catfishers in the country. I put him in that top echelon.
He whoops my ass every time I fish a tournament.
And it doesn't matter what they're, you get the guys that, maybe you get lake guys, you get river guys, you get your southern guys, but to be able to go anywhere in the country and catch big fish, that's the tough thing to do.
Yeah.
Anybody can catch fish on their home water, but and he's right there. He's right there with them on being able to do that.
And the fact that he's a cool dude just makes it even more awesome.
And he drives a super. I think he's still got his van.
It was parked at Catfish Conference.
Yeah.
It looks like
not one of the coolest fishing rigs ever.
Oh, it's sweet, man. It's like this tactical assault van.
Yeah. It's as close as you're going to get to the A-team van. Catfishing. Every time I see it, so jealous of that thing.
Yep. Well, Ryan, what do you got for your last cast, buddy?
Oh, spring is upon us. I'm looking forward to some ice out channel cats. May 1st, I'm going full time with my guide service and my animal control business. So
hell yeah.
if you are looking for some early channel cat trips or some June to September, hopefully Flathead trips, look me up at tasseryan@hotmail.com or get a hold of me on Facebook, and we'll set it up.
Tasler Guide Service, Facebook.
Hey, we should probably get together and fish one of these times, Ryan.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I've ever been. I don't think I've ever been fishing with you, have I?
We went on the ice one time when Whisker Seeker had that little get together. Yep. But yeah, that's it. I mean,
can I go?
Hell no.
All right. No, my last cast. Thank you to everybody who took the time to listen, and hopefully enjoyed it. Thanks to both of you guys for hopping on. Parting words: light tackle makes channel cats awesome. And this is every Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Appreciate y'all. I said y'all. I need to quit doing.
He's Southern like now.
Gosh, I appreciate you all. Have a good night.
I like the all. I throw that out there all the time too.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.